Beth. Hello, good afternoon, fundraisers. We are live here in the Major Donor Fundraising group. My name is Beth Upton. I run Money Tree Fundraising. I also run the Major Donor Fundraising group. And I'm here with my colleague, Kitty Hazel, who's one of our associates in Money Tree Fundraising and is a major donor expert. While everyone's joining, Kitty, do you want to introduce yourself for a minute?
Hi, everybody. My name is Kitty Hazel. I am Canadian. I've been fundraising in Canada and across the globe for more than 20 years. Don't want to say the exact number. It's a lot. I've been working with Money Tree Fundraising for a long time. I love it. It's great. I love major gift fundraising. I think it's fun. And I would love to help you be more successful. So any questions you have, throw it at us. Let's see what we can do.
So yeah, absolutely. Do ask your questions. Type them into the comments underneath the video that you're watching here, and we will do our best to answer them. While everyone's kind of thinking about what their questions are, Kitty, I wanted to start with a scenario. So this person has recently been hired to their new role and has arrived to discover there is a budget expectation for their major donor role of £300,000. There appear to only be 2 donors in the programme. This is the first time they've hired a dedicated major donor fundraiser. The person who set the budget has left, so there's no history as to where that number came from, what it's based on. And certainly the level at which those 2 donors are currently giving is definitely not going to cover a big chunk towards that £300,000. Where would you start if that was you?
Well, I think the first thing to do is have a nice, open, honest conversation with your line manager about this number, where it came from, and maybe ask them. Maybe they have some intel as to where this number came from. And let's kind of really be open and honest. Is this a realistic number? How many donors do we have? Look at the database. Start with your database is the best place to go. Talk to your colleagues and find out who they're talking to. So who your corporate speaking with, because corporates are people. People give money. Who are your trust dealing with? Who's coming to your events? Do you have an event coming up or anything like that you could start to maybe hold an extra VIP reception for some prospects that you could identify? But also, I think it's really, really important that you understand that this is a number made without any thought put into it. And as an expert, and you are an expert as a major gift fundraiser, you need to control that thought. You need to control that expectation and make it more realistic. They will respect you, because there's no one else in the organization that's going to bring that money in. Also, you want to meet with every single trustee, find out what their thoughts are about major gift fundraising. So you don't want to ask them, who do you know? You want to find out, what do you know about major gift fundraising? Do you know what it is? What do you think about it? Do you think it's important? And you want to understand that level of thought, because if the trustees are saying, look, we didn't approve this role anyway, you're in a very interesting situation. You might need to reevaluate what's going to happen next.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you very much. So I want to ask a question at the other end of the scale as well. So let's imagine you are hired into an established major donor program, right? Okay. It's been motoring along. Everyone's really happy with it. They've got regular donors. They've got a pipeline of new donors. It's motoring. What would you recommend to someone new in post that they could look at to see where they could make improvements?
So are they new in post and given a portfolio?
Yeah, let's say it's a management post.
Okay. Well, it's great to have donors giving, but eventually these donors will stop giving. So how are you feeding that pipeline? How are you making sure that when people have had their 3 years and their pledge is over, how are you keeping them inspired to continue? But also, where's the growth coming from? Yeah. Because your trustees are going to expect you to raise income increasingly year upon year upon year. So what are you doing to make sure you feed that motoring that? The other thing I would think about is, are you asking these people enough? You know, someone giving £10,000 in 2018, it's not £10,000 in 2024 or 2025. We need to think about, how are you digging deep and inspiring individuals to up their giving, stretch their gifts? Are you listening to your donors? Are they being thanked enough? I would do a donor assessment. If you're new in post and you have this amazing, apparently, portfolio, why don't you start interviewing these people and finding out what they really think about the organization? What do they think about the comms? What do they think about the way they're treated? Are events important to them? Do they have access to the CEO? Is that something they want? This is your opportunity to really add a whole new layer of intelligence and understanding, which is important.
I love that. I'm a huge advocate of going and asking your donors what they think, and not having standard answers. And I think it is easier when you are new in post to ask those questions. There is a freshness, and potentially a freshness of face that would mean that the donors might respond to you better, or they might be interested, oh, well, actually, this is a new person. Maybe I can tell them this thing that's slightly been niggling me for a while.
Yeah.
I do
But also,
find
Beth, it's a great way to impress your colleagues because you're coming in fresh and new.
Yeah.
They've been there for a while. It does get a bit stagnant. So you're coming with these new ideas, new inspiration. You might be giving them the energy boost they're all looking for. So take this as an opportunity to kind of make your mark.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And the other thing I was going to say is I think that once you have got really good relationships with donors, they don't want to tell you the truth if the truth isn't 100% positive, because they like you. And it's not nice saying things when you like people, and broadly they want to stay with your organization, and there's just this little thing that's niggling them. And so a new person can be brilliant at kind of getting a bit more honesty out of there and really doing that. And I think going back to the first scenario as well, where this person's got 2 donors and an enormous target, which, we've all been there, unfortunately. Well, certainly, maybe we haven't all been there, but I've been there. And I think there. Yeah. I certainly know lots of people who've walked in and they've kind of gone, well, we've hired someone now, so £500,000, please.
Yeah.
Like, ooh. So that's really hard. But that donor interview thing is going to be just as important in that role. You have only got 2 donors, therefore they are the super most important people in your world, because you definitely can't afford to lose them. And if you've got to increase income quickly, obviously you always want to do it strategically in the right way. Actually finding out if they know anyone that they can introduce you to who is also able to give at a similar level, or who might start their giving lower and grow into their giving over time, is probably going to be your quickest win. And you can't just kind of march into a stranger and go, hi, so I've got this target. I know you already give 10 grand, but do you know anyone else who could match you? So, going and having conversations and being curious and meeting people is the way that's going to happen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also your donors are most likely sitting on the boards of some other organizations. They could be on the Arts Council, so on and so forth. They're going to know other philanthropists. So it's about finding out, do you talk about this organization? How can we, and you need to think about, how can I profile my donor so that other people know that he or she is giving to us and maybe is curious to learn more? So is that a spotlight on them in a newsletter? Is that getting them on social media somehow? Is that asking them to follow you on Instagram or post or tweet? These are the ways you want to start moving that engine.
Yeah, I completely agree. We've got a couple of questions have come in, so I am going to have a flick through. So the first one is about considering going freelance because they're being made redundant. Any advice to get them started? If I'm honest, I can probably see your name once I come off the chat and I go into Facebook. I'll give you some advice separate to this because that will derail our whole conversation. Going freelance is mega. Major donor freelance has some shortcomings in terms of the limitation of what you can do, is what I would say. So you can't ask for gifts and things like that. So it's a trickier one. The next question is, if you're looking to start a major donor program from scratch, what are the first 5 steps to take? So, I mean, that's a really exact number, and I'm not sure there are exactly 5 steps you should take, but can I have a punt, Kitty? Yeah. And then you can tell me. So the first step we take when we help organizations start a major donor program from scratch is we do like an internal readiness assessment. It sounds really boring and everyone's like, oh God, are you sure? But there isn't a part of fundraising where this is more important. You've got to make sure your privacy policy is going to support you. You've got to make sure your staff internally and your trustees have kind of got the right attitude and they have enough knowledge to be supportive and pro major donor fundraising. So there's that kind of internal readiness piece. The second one is you've got to have a compelling case, right? You can't just go and raise unrestricted money from major donors. I mean, you can, but those are your long-term donors who already totally buy into the cause and trust you with unrestricted income. Broadly, it is a restricted income funding stream. And so you're going to need a good case. The next thing is you're going to need a list of potential donors. Kitty and I were talking about this before we came live and she went, well, that's your database, isn't it? And that is your database. Absolutely. So who do you already know? Who's giving at a low level? Who's already a supporter in terms of signing petitions? Who's already reading your newsletter? How can you find potential major donors from there? So that's your third step. the fourth is the thing we just said. It's go and meet some of those people and chat to them, find out what makes them tick. Why do they support your charity? What would help them engage deeper? What would make it more meaningful for them? And the fifth is, I don't know, what's the fifth step? I mean, ultimately it's asking, but I don't think that's the fifth step in starting out. I think those are your 4 steps. And then kind of what you learn from all of that information gathering, you then compile a plan. That's what I would say broadly.
Yeah. Beth, you hit the nose on the head. But if I could give a fifth one, is what are the processes in place to manage a gift? So if someone does give you £50,000, great job. But do you have projects that warrant £50,000? And then how are you going to report back? And what's the thanking procedure? And how do you recognize that gift? And you need to have all these things in place before you start asking. Because once the gift comes in, you got to hit the ground running. That's the hard part, to be honest with you, isn't it, Beth? Once the gift comes in, it's okay. How do I retain this donor? How do I treasure? How do I report back and make this person feel like they are really, really important and integral and not a cash cow? So
thank you. That's a really good addition. Thank you. I hope whoever you are, that helps you. I mean, it's a big question. Our next question is somebody who's looking to hire a fundraising role in Major Gifts. Would like some advice about shaping the role, recruiting and integrating into a team where the CEO has been the fundraiser to date. So I think this is really hard. I think there are 2 types of people in the world: people who like to set up major gift programs and people who like to run them. And I'm seeing a lot of recruitment that's really struggling because people who are great at running programs don't necessarily want to set them up, and people who want to set them up don't necessarily want to run them. It's a very selfish piece of advice because obviously it's what we do. But one of the things I highly recommend genuinely is getting a consultancy in, or a freelance consultant in, to set it up and to do all of that scoping work to get you set up, and then hire the person and say, here, we're hiring you and we know it's okay. Fundraisers often are badly burned by poor organizations. It's a big step to take up a startup type role. You can be badly burnt once and then never do it again. That's one of the reasons they don't want to do it. It is potentially a different skill set. The skill set of getting all that stuff sorted and the skill set of motoring are not necessarily the same, I would say. What's your view, Kitty?
Well, setting up a major gift program requires a lot of admin skills and digging skills. And running a major gift program, you need to do admin, but you have to have a level of charisma that isn't required in setting it up. So it is 2 different sets of skills. A good fundraiser will know what needs to be done, but doesn't necessarily, like you said, want to do it. You want to, before you just decide to set it up, can you find out why you want to set up? Why is your organization pushing to do major gift fundraising? Do you have the structure in place to manage it once it's going on? I know the CEO has been doing all the asking, right, Beth? That's what they've been saying. So
CEO has been fundraiser to date. So
what's the CEO's role going to be when you hire someone? Are they going to open up their books? Are they going to take the new person to all the meetings and really graciously hand over those relationships? I think there's some difficult conversations that need to be made and had, because what you don't want to do is set this program up and the CEO is not willing to relinquish control, or wants to be that helicopter that hovers and dives in every single time there's a good prospect. I'm not criticizing your CEO. I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah. And I've got a couple of CEOs in my head in that scenario as well. Or the other scenario is that the CEO is going to keep the relationships they have and expect the fundraiser to find new ones. And that's really, really hard. That's
unfair.
Quite demoralizing, I think.
Yeah, it's unfair. Let's be honest. The fundraiser is not going to have the breadth that the CEO does of making these kind of that level connections that are going to give it that level. So I suggest try to have some really deep conversations now, because you have a small time to do this. Once you start rolling out the program, you can't then go back and find out, well, why do you want to set this up? Why now? What are you hoping to gain? And is the CEO looking to leave the organization? Is that their long-term plan? That's why they're setting this up. Why is a big question I'd want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. And obviously impossible to cover on a quick chat like that, but hopefully we've given this person enough food for thought in terms of that. I mean, if you do just decide to recruit, go and look at the job descriptions that are out there at the moment, talk to those people who are recruiting at the moment, find out what's going well for them, what's not working, are they struggling to recruit, and all the rest of it. You probably can't afford to hire an agency to help you recruit, but if you can, I hugely recommend doing that. Good agencies are absolutely worth their weight in gold, in my opinion. Next question for me for my fundraising is, where or how can I develop my skills on making the ask?
That's a good question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a brilliant question. And we are going to shamelessly plug our training program now, which we try not to do. So Kitty and I developed last year Mastering Major Donor Fundraising, which is a 4-day in-person training course. You don't have to do all 4 days. You can do 1 day, you can do 2, 3, or 4. The 4 topics we cover on that training program are persuasive proposals. And included in that, we cover a lot of internal machinations and management, because it is a team effort. Prospect pipeline, which is probably the biggest one because it takes you from identification all the way through to cultivation. Then practical management, which is the thing Kitty said in that top 5 things, which is, how do you run your program internally? How do you keep yourself on track? How do you make sure everyone else knows you're on track? How do you motor with it? And the 4th one is powerful asking, where we do a whole day of, how do you know when to ask? How do you know what to ask for? How do you know when the time is right? And tons of practice on it. So that's my personal plug for that. If our training program doesn't suit you, so all you need to do is Google Mastering Major Donor Fundraising and you'll be able to find that. Booking opened this week. If that doesn't suit you, my actual advice is improv classes. We do a lot of improv training in our in-house training, because I've done quite a lot of improv and what have you, but it really does open up a different kind of listening and exchange of information, and has really helped me have much better conversations with my donors. And the truth about asking is the culmination of a lot of conversations. And if you're having the right conversations and you're doing the right listening and asking the right questions, asking is relatively straightforward. Like, it's totally nerve-wracking, but it's relatively straightforward because you kind of know that they're ready. So my experience of people who need to ask training is actually, let's get better conversations happening and really motor with useful cultivation and end that endless chit chat. And then asking is a bit more straightforward. But if you want ask training, highly recommend us. We are brilliant.
and to add to that, Beth, which we should mention, is our 4 sessions are not theory, they are practical. We ask you to actually bring experiences, bring your pipeline, bring your portfolio, bring your case studies, all that stuff, and we work with you on the day. When you leave the session, whichever module you've chosen to do, every single module, when you walk away, you have the tools, you have the actual words you're going to need to hit the ground running, to make that phone call to that challenging individual and say, I know what I'm doing now. We need to talk.
Yeah.
So the practical aspect is really huge.
And that really mattered to both of us when we developed the training last year. Is, you know, this is based on our actual knowledge of us doing major donor fundraising in-house, added to with years and years of my consultancy and training on top, but really embedded in both of us having worked in situations where we've started programs from scratch, we've run established programs, we've built programs up, and we've done the asking, we've done the cultivating, we've done the powerful proposals, we've done the internal management for years and years. We absolutely know what success takes. And you're right in that practicality was the key word that was essential for me when I decided to write it. Thank you. So next question, it might be a brief one, if I'm honest. I don't think this is quite for us. So collaboration is the key in the non-profit sector. I guess that could be true. What would it be possible for a non-profit expert like us to collaborate with an independent project proponent and be like a sort of bridge to connect to potential private major donors? Short answer in my instinct is no, because we don't bring our own address books. As consultants and freelancers and as fundraisers in-house, we are never hired because of our personal connections. And there's a question about, I'm going to link this to a question further down, which is, I think identification of philanthropists is our current challenge. I don't mix in the right circles. So let's talk about that. You don't always have a database. You don't always have access to screen your database due to ill-conceived privacy policies, which is my personal opinion, but a hill on which I will die nonetheless. You know, so there can be reasons why you're going out looking for people cold, right? And I don't hang out in circles for whatever this person who wants collaboration wants. Like, that might not be my bag personally. I might not go and hang out in that circle. But as a fundraiser, I probably need to meet those people. And so what I recommend for both the collaboration person and the identification person is find out where the people who care deeply about your cause do hang out. Because philanthropists who care deeply about one specific thing are going to the symposiums and the conferences and the fireside chats about that topic. They absolutely are, because they are deeply passionate about that topic and they want to learn more because they want to solve that world problem. If you start also hanging out there, and it might not be you, it might be your head of services, it might be your chief exec, they might already be going, then you and your organization gets to connect with all the other people who care deeply about it. Now, you can obviously do that in person, and I think that's important. I see an awful lot of these happening online. So lots of Zoom chats and things that go on. They don't all cost money. Quite a lot of them are free. But also LinkedIn. Go and literally start searching through LinkedIn for people who have an interest in, and then try and connect with them on LinkedIn. And then don't message them like a salesperson and ask if you can pitch your charity. What you then start doing is you start posting as if you are a subject matter expert about your topic. They will see that naturally in their feed and they will think, oh, someone else I can speak to who's going to help me solve this world problem. And that's how you build that connection. And it is long and it is hard. And it is why we recommend that people start with their databases, because you're not going to win your 300 grand in your first year from our first question this way. You're barely going to make any money in year 2 or year 3, I would say, this way. But if you genuinely want to connect with like-minded philanthropists who want to cure the same world issue that your organization sets out to solve, that is a way to do it. So it's not an easy answer for either of you.
No, that's excellent. And if I could just add, I was part of a charity where my predecessor was a lady that lunched, and all her contacts were of that realm, and that's why she was doing the role. But it wasn't a proper major gift program. There were no notes. There was no structure. There was no strategy. So it was just her asking her mates to give money.
Yeah.
I think you'll find more success when there's a professional fundraiser leading the role and implementing the right tools and processes. You'll have more success. So don't feel that you have to be, walk around with the Black American Express card to show how posh you are. You just need to know what you're doing.
Yeah. And subject matter expertise is definitely really important. And I think that when you're thinking about employing people, so going back to the CEO's question earlier about hiring someone, you've got to think about how to retain people as well. Right. So I regularly get asked how to hire the right person. So-and-so has left. Can you help me? I'm struggling with my recruitment. I have, in nearly 14 years of business, never once been asked how they can retain their staff. Never once. Not. No one asks how they can retain their staff. And when you're talking about long-term sustainable relationships, things that take multiple annual budget cycles to come to fruition, and subject matter expertise, I definitely would love to start hearing some regular chat about how can I retain my staff? I have limited budgets. I can't pay them the earth. What are the things I can do as an employer that will mean that my staff will stay? And, we've seen a lot of move back to the office. And I'm not suggesting that anyone on our chat is doing that. Generally, we chat to smaller charities that are much more agile than that, right? But, we've seen this push back to the office. People are not wanting that. And so they're quitting. They've worked out they can't afford to travel, or they've enjoyed actually having some family life, and they've worked really hard and they don't feel looked after. So, location is a big thing. Money is always going to be a thing. We do live in a capitalist society, and we do all have rent and mortgages to pay, whether we like it or not. But, you know, outside of those really big things, I would love there to be some chat about staff retention. Really would. And my favourite recruiter, Polly Simonson, always talks to me about retention. She would rather talk to people about retention than she would about recruitment, for exactly the same reason, because she is the one who's getting the phone calls from the upset staff who are like, I can't cope with this anymore. They're just not listening to me. You know, yet again, the budget's been put up, even though we didn't even hit target this year. They don't get it. I can't flog this dead horse any longer. I've got to go. I've got to find me somewhere where they will listen to me and trust me as a professional. But also lots of other things as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely add that. We have got another question. I'm aware we've only got 3 minutes left, so we ought to answer it. We can stay on, everyone. So if you want more questions answered, or you want to dive in and comment on what we're saying, please feel free to add your comments, and we will stay on a bit longer. So this question, Kitty, is how can we divide corporate/business supporters from high net worth individuals when we have such a limited pool and not a huge amount of differences between what we can offer either pool? But we now have 2 fundraisers who deal with 1 pool each. So I'm guessing they have a corporate fundraiser and they have a major donor fundraiser, and they're seeing a lot of clash. And what is your advice there?
Well, that's actually quite complicated, isn't it? But you have to understand where the gifts are coming from. If they're individuals who are giving you this gift, if they're the CEO of an organization, but the check or the bank transfer is coming from their personal account, they're a donor. Yeah. What you want to do is be able to work with your colleague to find out how you can use their interest and passion to stretch more and to reach out to the organization to help you. Same way, if they're an organization and they're giving you money, you want to work with your corporate fundraiser. Just talk to that person about, can we hold an event? Can we do something like a breakfast with you and your top tier colleagues to talk about the organization and why your corporate supports us? And from that, we might be able to get some individuals also supporting us as well. Yeah. But you also need a clear distinction in your portfolios, because I'm assuming you have targets.
Yeah.
I'm assuming. There must have been a rationale as to why to hire someone else. There must have been a reason.
I mean, I don't know the organisation. I don't know who has asked, because it just says Facebook News on here. But it certainly wouldn't be the first time I've come across an organisation with half decent corporate contacts that has thought that they can use that to launch pad a major gift programme because wealthy people work in the corporate sector. And I've always seen it struggle. I have to be really honest. I find it really challenging because the framing of the relationship with the corporate partner is that of corporate partnership, right? Or corporate fundraising. So you go and you meet the managing director or the CEO of the company. They're expecting to find out about their corporate volunteering or their corporate gift or their corporate grant or whatever it is, to ask them to open their personal address book. It's a big reframe, right? Mm-hmm. That is a very, they didn't sign up to asking their friends and family for gifts. They signed up because it is in their CSR and ESG policy that they'll have a corporate partner. Like, I think it's a really big leap. And I think you can do it if you have a brilliant relationship with that person or those senior people. But how often do you get the time to build those relationships? Because they're running a business. They don't want to spend all the time with you. I think it's really hard. I think there are occasions where companies support specific causes because the senior management have a personal passion. Mm-hmm. And on those occasions, your corporate person should speak to your major donor person and say, hey, on top of the standard corporate stuff, I'm seeing something here that I think is in your bag. I want to introduce you. I want you to really run with it because it's a personal thing. But I mean, I agree with you. I think, like, if that is how the donor pool is set up in this organization, you've just got to split them. You get a person A, I get person B, you get C, I get D. And if it turns more corporate-y and you're the major donor person, you've got to be open to passing that back, or you've got to have hybrid roles where you're both doing both.
Yeah, you need a really clear definition, though, of expectations, and so there's no overlap and there's no misunderstandings. And if there's targets involved too, that can be tricky.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really, really hard one. Really hard one. Listen, everyone, we've done our half an hour. We are just past the hour. So we haven't had any more questions. I'm just going to refresh to make sure that's actually true before I say that. Last time I cut someone off. It's very embarrassing. My technical prowess as it is. So if you have any more questions, do ask them quickly now. There's one more. Here we go. A bit more has come through. There's lots of thank yous, Kitty, I should say. The CEO who we spoke about earlier said absolutely right, asking all those questions of themselves now. So that's really great. Thanks for the advice. LinkedIn is indeed really good in meeting like-minded professionals. However, philanthropy pages rarely respond. This particular NGO advertising mission for connecting funders. I mean, I think going through a company's page to connect is never going to be the right way to go. You know, if you want to connect with a particular organization, you should do your homework and find the people behind it and try and connect with those people. It's about people, not about organization when you're doing connections. So, you know, don't try and message a company cold saying, hi, I think we could make a great collaboration. That's really hard. Find some people in there that you can collaborate with and try and just churn through there. Find out where they're attending something face to face. They might be doing their own expos and their own symposiums. You know, that might come through on the company page. We're going to be exhibiting at such and such in Berlin. You know, I just springs to mind because the neighbour's doing that at the moment. You know, so see if you can get budget to go to Berlin and turn up at their expo, or find out if there's the same one in the UK, so you don't have to travel so far, assuming you're UK based. And good collaboration is a comment here, which I assume is about what we were just saying about the corporate high net worth tie-in as well. I mean, I think you've got to be really good colleagues. You've got to work really closely together. You've got to have an understanding boss where targets are going to kind of move between one person and the other, where it might have appeared corporate-y and then turns major donor-y. So there you go. But otherwise, thank you, Kitty. I've really appreciated chatting with you today. Thank you for your time. I hope that's been really helpful. Bye for
Thanks,
now.
Beth. That was fun. I really enjoyed that. Thanks, everyone. Hope to hear from you.